Hello everyone and welcome back to Red Room Stories. I know many of you tune into these tales to help you drift off to sleep. So before we settle in, I'd love for each of you to leave a comment sharing where in the world you're listening from. And if you're enjoying the episodes, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get comfortable, relax, and begin. The storm crested the hills like a monstrous wave, dark and swelling, as Olivia pulled her car into the splintered gravel driveway of her grandmother's abandoned farmhouse. The once cherished home, now overcome with years of neglect, loomed before her, its windows like hollow eyes peering into her desperate heart. Having inherited the property after her grandmother's sudden passing, she wasn't prepared for the weight of the solitude that now enveloped her. The air was thick with the acrid scent of wet earth and decaying wood, a bittersweet reminder of all that had been lost. Stepping out of the car, she could feel the oppressive weight of the sky, a constant, brooding presence overhead. Each drop of rain on her skin felt electric, as if the storm held a secret just beneath the surface. The overgrown garden, once vibrant with wildflowers, now writhed with sharp, thorny brambles, as if nature itself sought to protect the memories buried within those walls. With every step toward the porch, a sense of foreboding draped itself around her shoulders like a heavy cloak. The front door creaked open with an echoing protest, revealing darkened hallways that seemed to stretch infinitely into the gloom. Dust motes danced in the smoky light slanting through broken windows. Olivia hesitated at the threshold, overwhelmed by an influx of memories whispered from the walls. Her grandmother's warm laughter, the smell of fresh-baked bread now replaced by mildew and rot. She pressed forward, unease creeping in as the house sighed around her like a living organism. As she explored the forgotten rooms, she felt a strange vibration beneath her feet, a low thrum that seemed to resonate from the very foundation. The air turned cold, mist curling in from the window frames, wrapping around her like a serpent. She wandered deeper into the house, caught between nostalgia and dread, until she stumbled upon a room at the end of the hallway, the attic, where countless boxes lay stacked like tombstones. Curious, she navigated through layers of dust, her fingers brushing against the brittle, crumbling edges of old photographs and letters. Among the artifacts of her past, Olivia found a small, intricately carved music box. Its surface was etched with unsettling, contorted figures, their expressions twisted in agony, as if they were caught forever in a struggle. Without thinking, she cranked the key, and the haunting melody spilled forth, soft, yet unsettling. As the notes spiraled around her, the temperature plummeted. Shadows danced around her, elongating and contorting as the music filled her with a sense of something not quite right. The notes faded into the silence, but something lingered at the periphery of her senses. Whispers, soft yet insistent, rising from the depths of the house, wrapping around her mind like tendrils of fog. The melody seemed to trigger something deep within her, unlocking memories she had buried. Images of her grandmother, her eyes glinting with something sharp and knowing, surged forth. Experiments with hidden forces, late-night rituals by candlelight, and a strange garden of whispered secrets that wrought bitterness into their family line. As the whispers turned to rustling, shadows coiling tighter, Olivia's skin prickled with an unshakable sensation of being watched. She retraced her steps back to the attic door but found it locked, an impossible barrier held against her. Panic fluttered in her chest like a caged bird. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of something rotten, remnants of long-buried fear rising like a choking fog, and the whispers morphed into cries, jagged and raw. With frantic energy, she clawed at the door, realizing too late that it was not just wood she was pushing against, but a deep, encroaching darkness. She spun around, horrified yet fascinated by the restless shadows gathering in the corners of the attic. They took form, vague shapes whispering secrets in a language that twisted her mind. The air crackled as she faced something unfathomable, a presence that felt both familiar and entirely foreign. In that moment, a flood of clarity washed over her. A memory of her grandmother's last words before her death echoed painfully. The music holds the key, but the key is also a curse. Olivia's eyes darted back to the music box, now vibrating with a low hum of energy. Desperate to reclaim her sense of self, she snatched it up and slammed it shut, the sudden silence crashing against the walls like breaking glass. But it was too late. The shadows converged around her, screaming in rage and grief. She felt tendrils wrap around her limbs, pulling her down into the floor, sinking her into darkness. With a final surge of resolve, she released the music box, only to find it was no longer in her hands. She had traded her freedom for a deeper bond with the shadows, the essence of her grandmother swirling within the cursed melody. As those long-forgotten figures reached for her, their screams crescendoed into her brain, each sound an excruciating reminder of her own unwilling betrayal, her own lineage. The house began to shudder. Its walls moaned, alive with fury as Olivia's scream joined the cacophony, an anguished confession spiraling through the shadows. Suddenly, she was not simply an inheritor of the house, but a tether to its dark legacy, bound forever to the whispers that suffocated her with their unyielding torment. In the aftermath of the storm, when the clouds had dispersed and light brightened the landscape, the farmhouse stood resolute, its facade cracked yet eerily vibrant. Passers-by could hear faint melodies drifting on the wind, weaving through the trees like a forgotten lullaby. But there was no sign of Olivia. In her stead, only the music remained, enchanting and dreadful, a siren's call that promised to awaken, the echoes of the past for those who dared to listen. And deep within those walls, shadows danced, waiting patiently for the next heart to falter, to listen, and to join their eternal cries. The pungent scent of decay hung thick in the air as Marissa stepped into the crumbling remains of the once thriving sanatorium of Trafalgar, its battered facade a sinister echo of the past. Nestled in the shadow of a craggy mountain, this forsaken place whispered secrets of long-lost souls buried beneath layers of dust and despair. She felt a magnetic pull, a cruel invitation to explore the depths where eeriness collided with nostalgia. The chill in the air made her shiver, though the sun was setting behind the mountains, casting elongated shadows that seemed to reach for her, begging her not to enter. Marissa's heart pounded against her ribcage, a frantic rhythm that resonated with each step on the cracked tiles inside the sanatorium. She was an anthropology student, driven by curiosity, seeking to document the stories of those treated here decades before its closing during the panic of the late 70s. The lingering remnants of suffering echoed in the silence as if the walls themselves mourned the lives entrapped within. A flicker of movement, a shadow darting across her periphery sent a wave of icy dread coursing through her, but she dismissed it, a trick of her mind, until she wasn't sure. As she wandered deeper into the bowels of the building, the air grew cold and heavier, thick with a sour odor that made her stomach churn. Papers littered the floor, yellowing with age, scrawled with incomprehensible notes and hurried sketches of grotesque figures. Marissa knelt to examine them, her fingers brushing against the brittle surface when a low hum began to vibrate through the walls, an unsettling resonance that seemed to awaken the shadows surrounding her. The sensation was disorienting, playfully tugging at her sanity as whispers danced just beyond the edge of comprehension, leaving her uncertain whether they originated from the darkness or from within her own mind. She pressed on, the jagged remnants of broken furniture and shattered glass crunching beneath her boots. Hallways twisted and turned, disorienting her sense of direction. It felt as if the sanatorium were a labyrinth designed solely for her, its architecture a haunting juxtaposition of past beauty and present decay. A door creaked ominously in the distance, swinging ajar with a beckoning pull. Cautiously, she approached, her heart hammering louder until it eclipsed the strange noises around her. Inside the room lay an old patient ledger, its cover darkened with grime, but strangely intact. The pages revealed patients' names and scribbles of their treatment. The further she read, the more fragmented their stories became. One name, Evelyn Rose, stood out, as it was scrawled repeatedly in frantic, desperate handwriting. Marissa traced the letters with trembling fingers, feeling an overwhelming sense of empathy for this long-gone girl trapped in a realm of anguish. The room seemed to close in around her, the walls whispering tales of madness, and she felt a shadow brush past her once more, its form flickering in the corner of her eye. Suddenly the hum escalated, morphing into a chorus of indistinct voices, rising in pitch and urgency. Panic surged like electricity as Marissa stumbled back, her breath mingling with the dust motes swirling in the heavy air. She turned to flee, but the way shifted, the halls morphing and writhing, as if the building itself were alive, a grotesque parody of reality. It became a breathless race against something unseen that loomed just outside the bounds of her perception, always a step behind, yet perpetually out of reach. Marissa burst into the main hall, gasping for air as her thoughts spiraled into chaos. The flickering overhead lights cast erratic shadows that danced mockingly around her. With every step she took toward the exit, the noises intensified, bouncing off the walls, morphing from distant whispers into frantic screams laden with despair. She felt the cold fingers of fear wrap around her throat as the realization set in. She was not alone, and those lost souls had awakened, demanding release from their memories entombed within the decaying edifice. Just then, she felt it. A hand upon her shoulder, ice cold and clammy, as if drawn from the very depths of the sanatorium's past. Spinning around, she faced the specter of a girl, translucent and sorrowful, her eyes a hollow abyss reflecting Marissa's own terror. In that fleeting moment of recognition, Marissa understood Evelyn had been trapped here, a soul caught in an unending loop of terror. The room darkened as the voices crescendoed, united in their anguish, wrapping around Marissa's heart like a vice. With a surge of adrenaline, Marissa bolted, navigating the shifting corridors with desperate determination, desperate to escape the depths of despair that threatened to consume her. The shadows morphed, twisting into monstrous shapes, clawing at her psyche as she darted through the darkness. Each corner turn promised salvation, yet only led her deeper into the clutches of the sanatorium's madness, the oppressive whispers echoing her name as if they sought to claim her as one of their own. Finally, she reached a staircase, the slivers of sunlight peeking through the cracked windows illuminating her escape. But as she sprinted upward, an unnatural force gripped her ankle, dragging her back into the suffocating darkness, the walls pulsating around her like a living heartbeat. Marissa screamed, her voice swallowed by the cacophony of voices drowning, in despair, and for a moment she felt the chilling embrace of the forgotten souls enveloping her. There was an unholy calm that followed, a surreality that blurred her pain. And suddenly, Marissa stood still, transfixed. She saw Evelyn not as a ghost, but as a mirror reflecting her own anguish, their eyes locking in shared understanding. They were bound by the same fear, the same longing to escape the darkness. But as Evelyn reached out, Marissa's heart sank, She understood her fate. In this hellish domain she would inherit the echoes of suffering, becoming a vessel for the lost to cling to. In the moments that followed, as time slipped away like the grains of sand in an hourglass, Marissa felt the shift. She was no longer simply a spectator, but an integral part of this grotesque play of despair. The substantial pull of the past had ensnared her, knitting her flesh and soul into the tapestry of haunted memories. The whispers that had once tormented her now felt like an embrace, a sinister lullaby lulling her into submission as the shadows closed around her. The sanatorium would continue to stand, its walls forever echoing the tales trapped within. Outside, the world continued its dance of triviality, unaware of the dark secrets lying dormant just behind the peeling paint. And deep within, Marissa became entwined with Evelyn, a new tale carved into the ledger of lost souls, restless and yearning for release, forever echoing within the decaying labyrinth of the sanatorium of Trafalgar. The rain fell in a relentless patter, washing over the dilapidated streets of Crow Hollow, a forgotten town nestled in the heart of nowhere. Abandoned storefronts loomed like skeletal remains, their shattered windows reflecting the gray sky, while the stench of mold and decay curled beneath the eaves. Marla had come here seeking solace, a break from the suffocating weight of her own past. A broken relationship, a job lost in the thrumming desperation of a city that never slept. But here, among the ruins, those shattered pieces felt oddly familiar. It was the perfect place to try to forget. Yet as she stepped across the threshold of her appointed lodging, a decrepit inn boasting faded signs and peeling paint, something inside her began to stir, an unsettling whisper that sharpened her senses. The innkeeper, a crooked old man with a voice like gravel, handed her a key that jangled ominously as she ascended the creaking staircase. The scent of damp wood clung to the air, and shadows danced along the hallway walls, flickering in time with the dim light overhead. Marla felt a chill creeping up her spine, each step more hesitant than the last. But her need to escape the crowded memories behind her propelled her forward. When she finally entered her room, an oppressive silence enveloped her, weighing heavily on her chest. She could see the outlines of mold creeping along the edges of the wallpaper, and the bed, its sheets of faded navy blue, seemed to sag under some unseen weight. That night the rain turned into a storm, rattling the windows and drowning out any semblance of quiet. Alone in the oppressive shadow of her room, unease wriggled in her throat. Every creak of the inn felt like a whisper, each drip from the cracked ceiling an ominous reminder that she was not alone. Outside, flashes of lightning illuminated the trees surrounding the inn, illuminating gnarled branches that seemed to clutch at the air with a hunger she could almost feel. As she lay in bed, the memory of her ex's dismissive laughter echoed in her mind, twisted into a mocking serenade by the menacing storm. For a moment, a shadow darted just beyond her peripheral vision, a flicker of movement that froze her breath, then disappeared. In the morning, the storm had passed, leaving the streets soaked and glistening like a dark mirror reflecting a world too distant for Marla to recognize. She ventured outside, drawn into the haunting beauty of Crow Hollow, the eerie silence broken only by the distant cawing of crows. Everything felt oddly vibrant, colors more saturated than they had any right to be, yet a sense of dread clung to her heart like a noose. She wandered from street to street, brushing her fingers against the decaying surfaces, absorbing the whispers of what might have once been a bakery, a toy shop, a diner where laughter echoed. Each one felt like a tomb, preserving the remnants of lives unlived, choices unmade, and an insistent weight of sorrow that seeped into her bones. Just as she thought she would succumb to despair, Marla stumbled upon a faded signpost at the town's edge. Each direction pointed to a different name, all of them heavy with the grace of lost history. One name, Elderwood, sent a shiver down her spine. She felt an inexplicable pull toward it, as if her bones recognized a call to something deeper, something that lay buried beneath the layers of time. Against her better judgment, she followed the overgrown path that led to the edge of a forest thick with trees that seemed to lean inward conspiratorially. The air turned colder, every breath laced with the heady scent of earth and decay, an intoxicating mixture that promised secrets. As she ventured deeper into the woods, dark clouds gathered again, whispering of storms to come. Shadows flickered between the trees, and the wind carried with it a strange sound, like distant weeping or perhaps something far worse. The trees seemed to twist and curl in unnatural ways, their gnarled roots searching for sustenance in the earth as if alive. Marla's heart raced, her instincts screaming that she should turn back, but the whispering voice tugged at her curiosity, an insatiable urge to uncover the truth of Elderwood that kept her moving forward. A flash of movement to her right caught her attention, sending a jolt of fear coursing through her veins, but when she turned, nothing awaited her save an empty clearing. In that clearing, however, lay a circle of stones, ancient and worn by time. Within the circle, the earth appeared disturbed, as if something had clawed its way out. A cold tremor of fear gripped her as memories of the town's dark past crept into her mind. Tales of disappearances, of rituals long forgotten by the outside world, whispers of a vengeful spirit that protected the forest's secrets. The air thrummed with an electric charge, a sense of wrongness that twisted in her stomach. It was then that she noticed a figure at the edge of the trees, half illuminated by the sudden brightness of lightning, silhouetted against the darkened skies. Frozen in place, Marla could only watch as the figure morphed slowly, its shape bending and flowing like smoke caught in a flame. The forest enveloped her in silence, leaving only the sound of her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. The figure seemed to beckon, its movements both mesmerizing and horrid, stirring something deep within her, a lost memory she could not place. The temperature dropped sharply, a biting cold wrapping around her, and the despair from earlier washed back over her, laden with urgency. Hadn't she come to escape? To leave behind the disintegration of her once vibrant life? Yet here she was, entangled in a web of darkness that felt increasingly familiar. In a moment of desperate clarity, she turned to flee, but the once familiar path back became twisted and unfamiliar. Shadows morphed into grotesque figures reaching for her with beckoning fingers, and the trees leaned closer, groaning with life intertwined. Shadows whispered her name, echoing with the voices of regrets long held at bay. She could feel tendrils of panic knotting in her stomach, the forest closing in around her as reality began to fragment. Marla stumbled and fell, the earth cold and unforgiving beneath her hands, her breath coming in quick gasps, desperation clawing at her throat. She could almost taste the bitterness of fear like ashes in her mouth. And then at the edge of her periphery, something flickered, a glimpse of her own face reflected in a nearby pool of water. But it wasn't just her face. It bore the burden of years of regret, of all the choices that brought her here, her own despair woven into the fabric of the forest. With a sudden overwhelming rush, clarity struck her. The forest was not just a place, it was a history, a memory, a prison built on the despair of those who had walked these paths before. The darkness whispered promises of acceptance, of becoming part of something greater, and part of her wanted to succumb to its call, to lose herself willingly in the shadows. In that moment of conflict, she made a choice. tears streamed down her cheeks as she tore herself away from the pool, the figure looming larger as if it sensed her defiance. With renewed desperation, she clawed her way back toward the fractured path, her heart pounding as she felt the air shift around her. Reality, warping with every hurried step. Twigs snapped beneath her feet and the air crackled with energy as she broke past the tree's embrace, bursting forth onto the outskirts of Crow Hollow, collapsing onto the sodden ground, the silence collapsing in a cacophony of distant echoes that reverberated through her bones. Yet as she gasped for air, the familiar warmth of the inn loomed in the distance, beckoning her back to her sanctuary. But the weight of the night pressed on every nerve, reminding her that she had strayed into darkness, and though she might have escaped the forest, its secrets now lurked just beneath her skin. The shadows followed her, whispering promises of the truth that would never entirely leave her. A constant reminder that Crow Hollow was never truly empty. In a place where the past swallowed the present, Marla understood with chilling clarity that forgetting was no refuge. It was the beginning of haunting, a promise hidden in the whispers of Elderwood, where nothing was ever wholly lost, only waiting, watching, needing to be awakened. Maria stared through the grimy window of her crumbling apartment, her breath fogging the glass as she surveyed the rain-soaked street below. The city pulsed with a rhythm of unease, a subtle quiver that crawled under her skin. It was an ordinary Wednesday, but with each ticking second the air thickened with an inexplicable dread. The once vibrant hum of urban life was lulled into a sinister whisper, punctuated by distant sirens and the occasional crack of thunder. As lightning split, the sky illuminating the dark silhouettes of buildings, she felt a chilling prickle at the back of her neck. Something was different. Something was waiting. It began 3 weeks earlier, when her childhood friend Lisa vanished without a trace. The police offered little reassurance, their indifferent tones blending into the background noise of her life. Days turned into nights, then nights blurred into days, and Maria found herself consumed by what-ifs and could-have-beens. She had visited the police station multiple times, but the officers filed her reports away with a monotony that gnawed at her resolve. Each absence deepened her sense of isolation, driving her to scour the city's underbelly, unearthing whispered rumors of cults and shadowed figures haunting the alleys. Paranoia was gradually replacing sorrow, the lines between friend and foe obscured by fear. On this night, with clouds rolling ominously overhead, she resolved to confront her growing dread. Maria pulled on her raincoat, its damp fabric clinging to her skin as she stepped into the lost city, where the air felt heavier, soaked in history and secrets. Each step echoed on the cracked pavement, the sound swallowed by the thickening mist. The streets twisted into a labyrinth, each corner revealing alleyways that reeked of decay. Yet her headstrong spirit pushed her deeper, driven by an inexplicable compulsion to find Lisa, to confront whatever hunted them both. As Maria ventured further, she discovered a peculiar symbol carved into the damp brick of a wall, an otherworldly sigil that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. It pulsed with energy that was both alluring and terrifying, igniting something primal within her. This was more than graffiti. It felt ancient, a beacon calling her closer, urging her to unravel the mystery. Fascination battled fear as she traced its edges with her fingers, the coldness of the stone sending shivers down her spine. Her heart raced as she contemplated her next move, but a sudden gust of wind whispered across the street, wrenching her away from the pulsing sigil as if it were a warning. Maria stumbled back, her instincts flaring. Surreal shadows cast by flickering street lamps danced at the edges of her vision, distorting reality. In that moment, the facade of the city shattered. What had once felt familiar transformed into a wasteland of secrets, where no one was to be trusted. With every passing moment, the rain intensified, filling the air with a metallic scent that twisted her stomach. She turned on her heel, desperate to return to the safety of her apartment, but the streets twisted strangely, disorienting her. As she navigated the endless maze, whispers began to echo around her, indistinct at first, then forming patterns, words of incantation resonating from unseen lips, drawing her toward a decrepit building that loomed imposingly at the street's end. It loomed like a creature poised to devour her. The door hung ajar as if silently inviting her into its gaping maw. Pulses of dread urged her to turn back, but the allure of revelation held her fast. She stepped over the threshold, the air inside, thick and damp, infused with the smell of mildew and something unnameable. The interior of the building was a shrine to disarray. Dust motes floated like lost souls, and faded photographs lined the walls, their subjects' expressions eternally frozen, fear, sorrow, longing. Maria moved deeper, led by a compulsion that turned the thrill of discovery into desperation. Hall after hall seemed to mock her with their endless repetitions. Rooms that mirrored one another, filled with remnants of lives interrupted. A sense of being watched settled heavily upon her, a sensation so profound it gnawed at her sanity. Then she saw it, a flickering light emanating from a door at the far end of the corridor. She approached, heart pounding, curiosity overshadowing caution. With trembling fingers, she pushed the door open, revealing a large room illuminated by candles arranged in strange, arcane patterns. It felt like a heart beating in its chest, the source of all the unsettling energy she had felt coursing through the city streets. In the center of the room stood a ceremonial altar, its surface smeared with dark stains that resembled dried blood. And there, at the altar's edge, she saw Lisa's photograph nestled among twisted symbols carved into the wood. An offering, a warning, a promise. Maria's breath caught as she honed in on a figure enveloped in shadow, a specter of unsettling familiarity. The figure turned. Its features were obscured, but the familiar hair and posture pierced through the darkness like a dagger through her heart. It was Lisa, or a twisted reflection of her. Eyes void, skin pale and glistening, like a fresh corpse resurrected by unspeakable power. Maria's mind struggled to grasp the horror unfurling before her. The whispers crescendoed, choking her, mixing fragments of Lisa's laughter with cries of despair, driving her deeper into madness. The realization hit her like a cold wave. This was not just about Lisa. It was about the darkness they had both harbored, the guilt, the betrayal bound in shared memories. She had tried to save Lisa from her demons, yet here they were, tangled in a web spun by forces beyond comprehension. She took a step backward, heart racing with the instinct to flee. But the shadows stretched, swallowing the doorway, sealing her fate. The room pulsed with energy, drawing her toward the altar as if guided by unseen hands. The walls seemed to whisper secrets too horrific to comprehend. In that moment of clarity, she understood that escape was an illusion, that she had come full circle, an unwilling participant in a dark ritual that echoed through generations. Panic clawed at her throat as the temperature plummeted, and she felt the icy fingers of despair wrap around her heart. The lights flickered violently, a strobe of reality distorting before her. In the chaos, the embodiment of her friend's loss crystallized into a single thought. She was trapped in this cycle of darkness, neither alive nor dead, forever caught in the web spun by her own fears and regrets. With a surge of defiance, Maria screamed, her voice ripping through the cacophony, a plea hidden within layers of terror. but the echoes only returned her cries as accusations, a taunting reminder of her failures. The realization pierced her that they were all reflections, distorted shadows of lost souls, caught in the same endless loop of anguish. As the darkness surged, and the room began to close in around her, Maria felt the unraveling of herself, the layers of sanity stripping away like paint from a rotting wall. In the last moments of consciousness, a haunting vision played out in her mind. Lisa smiling but shadows lurking just behind her eyes. The altar's grip tightened, a visceral web encasing her as she became one with the darkness. The city shifted, ebbing with the tide of her despair. The rain outside washing away her existence, drowning out her fading screams. The rain no longer felt like weather but a cleansing ritual, heralding the end of a story where she became the whisper in the shadows, waiting for the next soul to wander by.